Flynn Broadcasting Stations. It's time for Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here is your host, the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
Welcome in on a Thursday, first week of college football. I was listening to Greg Eli, Harold Grader from the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. They're making their picks already. We'll start that next Friday, a week from tomorrow. We got a new fall lineup. We'll tell you all about that tomorrow as well. Today, Russell Copeland will join us. Next segment, we'll talk NFL, maybe a little Tiger football. Jarvo will be here. We'll talk about that as well. Conference expansion again, raising its head. If you have not heard, one more time now, the ACC is in discussions. They're talking Stanford, Cal, SMU. SMU. Stanford and Cal come in for a reduced rate. The SMU rate, it's a hard rate to believe. SMU is willing to join that league and will take, for the first 7 years, the television money. They will take zippo. None. Nada. 0 pennies. Now, in Memphis, we're considering that. Think about it. It's 5 years, right? The amount of money, even from the American package with ESPN, that amount of money is still somewhere between $5 and $7 million. So let's just say we'll go in between. We'll say it's 6. That's $42 million. Could Memphis afford to turn away that kind of money every year and still exist with 11,000 season tickets sold in football? I don't know. It seems to me almost mission impossible. SMU's got a lot of money. Remember, they're the guys that have this group that's already put up $46,000 base pay for every college football player, even the walk-ons, to start. That doesn't include what the quarterback may be getting, the running back may be getting. They had a great receiver now in the NFL, what he would have been getting. That's just to start. That's if you're a walk-on, you get $46,000.
Well, think about the opportunity cost, too, of just being around in that league that SMU gives. Obviously, they have the bankroll to be able to forego that television money. But you think about the opportunity cost of the ability you had to rack in all the money down the stretches. Now you have a piece of the pie. And we talked yesterday about how some of these teams that are grandfathered in, you have to think Memphis would have a better, more appealing package to offer these leagues than these schools that are grandfathered in. Once you're grandfathered in like SMU would be if they join this, now you're sitting pretty. You get all the potential money that's going to come down the stretch after that 7-year period.
But 7 years.
That's right.
7 critical years. Maybe SMU can afford that. I don't know how Memphis would unless they took out a loan or got somebody. And I'll just throw out the name Fred Smith, or I'll throw out the name Pitt Hyde, all the benefactors of this city that would go, okay, you know what? We'll put that money into an account. We'll just put it up, and Memphis can draw it out each year. That's the television money they would have gotten. Maybe that would work that way. Look, there were rumors that people were trying to buy Memphis into the Big 12, and that was almost scoffed at. Okay? This is what this is. We're buying our way in. Okay. Can Memphis afford that for this league? Well, here's the thing. So, by bylaws, there has to be 75% that agree. So, the new schools coming in, I guess, would get a vote because the ACC in its present makeup is 12 schools, correct? You add the 3 schools, there's 15 votes. So basically, you've got to get one of the 4 schools that dissented the last time to agree. The 4 schools that voted they did not want Stanford or Cal. I don't even know if SMU was in the works at that time. The 4 schools were North Carolina State, Clemson, and Florida State. Clemson and Florida State want out anyway. They want to get in the SEC. I think they eventually will. So now, Stanford and Cal, do they make sense in that league, in the ACC, from all the way over to the West Coast? Even, frankly, in Dallas, although you get Texas market, I could understand why the ACC might want that. And you're getting a major television city in Dallas. How much penetration SMU gets, I don't know. But you know what? Everything's changing because the penetration between Texas and Oklahoma into the SEC, that's going to take some of the state away from the Big 12, some of that penetration anyway.
I think you're best served if you're SMU being in the same league as other Texas schools, right? Because that way you don't have to work as hard. Let's say SMU.
Well, there's not a Texas school in the ACC. If they got into the Big 12, that would make sense.
Right, exactly. Because you're not going to.
It actually makes sense. More sense in my mind for them would be if the Pac-12 got enough schools. Stanford, Cal, Washington State, Oregon State. If they added SMU geographically, if they added Memphis, if they added San Diego State, if they added Boise State, some of the Mountain West, some of the look, there were rumors Memphis and USF, for instance, would be in that range. You know, USF, look this up. Although I'm not going to tell you they have great penetration in the market, but when they were a factor in the Big East with Jim Leavitt, they were drawing big crowds. When they had decent teams way back when they built what was then called the Sun Dome, now the Yuengling Center, big crowds. They've lost all that. They're never going to be as big as Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're never probably going to be as big as the Tampa Bay Lightning. I hope they're going to be as big as the Rays because they don't draw. But I think part of that is it's in St. Pete. But my point is, here's a school. I think it's one of the top 10 most populated schools in the country. I think there's 40,000. Have you got the enrollment there?
No, I'll get the enrollment right now. I was trying to find like any figures for crowds, but I can't find anything concrete.
I'm not even thinking about crowds because they've been awful. Last time Memphis played at Raymond James Stadium, and remember they're building their own new stadium where their golf course used to be. And their facilities are going to be terrific. I'm telling you, they got 40,000 students easy. They've got Tampa Bay. That's their market. That makes more sense to me than SMU, geographically.
It looks like in Florida, wow, there's some really.
Central Florida is one of the biggest schools, maybe
third
the biggest school in the country. Arizona State? Central Florida, USF's in the top 10, I'm almost certain.
South Florida, the last time they were in the top 10 was 2020. So that you got to imagine they're in the top 20 then if they're in and out of the top 10 all the time.
What's the number?
The last number I have here is 51,646.
Okay, there you go. And SMU, look at the enrollment at SMU. It's a private school. It's got money, lots of money. It delivers Dallas and the state of Texas somewhat.
At SMU, the most current number I have is from, this is not recent at all, it's from 2016. It's about 12,000.
Yeah, I don't think it's more than 14 or 15. I'll give them up to 15. I don't think it is. It costs $78,000 to go to that school now. So they would be getting a different animal. But I will say this, the ACC with institutions like Duke, North Carolina, Virginia, that's not a mass population commuter kind of school league, right? And unfortunately, Central Florida, or really South Florida is, Memphis is. So I am not sure what the direction is that's the proper direction. I know this. If they change the way the playoff structure is going, and Greg Sankey wants that, because he wants all the rich to get richer, then there's a real problem for those that are in this group of five. if they keep at least one seat at the table, because right now they could get two if the Pac-12 seat goes away. And with 4 schools, it could. Now, that's where the Pac-12 has to really be, I think, aggressive and trying to go after schools. The problem they have is no traditional television deal. They're Apple TV. All streaming. No what we now call linear TV package. That's a problem. Even if they could get it to 30 million, like apparently they were on the verge of doing with Apple TV, it wasn't enough to keep Oregon, Washington, those schools that defected. Because they had gotten to that point, even after USC and UCLA, they were getting up to 30 mil. So I'm not sure what absolutely will occur there, but it makes very little sense to me. With SMU getting no money for 7 years, although you're right about this, it means survival beyond those 7 years, that you're in a league that will be together. I don't think Duke, North Carolina, Virginia, North Carolina State are going anywhere. Now, believe me, this league will not be what it is in 7 years. When they're making money, because it seems to me Florida State and Clemson are not going to be in that league. They're going to go to the SEC eventually. The SEC is going to keep up with the Big Ten, and the Big Ten's now got 18. I wouldn't be shocked if later on we see that the Big Ten and the SEC go to 20. All a matter of time. And so much needs to be viewed, I think, on the West Coast with what the Pac-12 will do with their seat at the table at the moment. And they really need to be aggressive. They're the ones that should be going more after SMU to get the Dallas market.
All of this is just so theoretical, too. Like, it's impossible. Like you're saying, it all depends on if X happens, then Y happens. Well, but then you have if Z happens, then, it's crazy how many variables there are in all of this.
Here's the first thing that's got to happen, right? The first thing that has to happen is that they got to get one dissenter to say yes. Which would that be? North Carolina and North Carolina State, do their votes go together? Because they're not going anywhere. They're the ACC. With Duke. Pretty much, even though this is football-driven, they're still the heart and soul of the ACC. Clemson and Florida State, I don't know if they care, because Florida State is trying to do background on, I think, securing some sort of financial deal, a loan, whatever it may be, to buy themselves out. It's so penal. What is the bite? Like $60 million to get out of their deal, their television rights deal with the ACC and ESPN?
They each get
Any ACC team that tries to leave has to pay a penalty that is so punitive at this point that it makes no financial sense unless somehow you got a sweetheart deal from some sort of lending institution that made it feasible that in the long run, with the money you'll get from the SEC TV money when you're granted full partnership, well, I would assume that would be a part of it right off the get-go. But who knows the way these things work. Look, Stanford and Cal, they're not getting a full share from the ACC for a while, and SMU's not getting anything for 7 years.
To bolt out of the ACC, any school would need to pay an exit fee of 3 times its annual revenue, which is approximately $120 million is what that would equate to.
120, okay.
$120 million.
So I thought it was 60, but it's 120.
I don't think they're going anywhere with $120 million on the table, like you said.
It's crazy. I think in order to get a favorable vote, however, this could happen. Both Florida State and Clemson in particular, has said, wait a second, we're the breadwinners here. Why is Duke getting the same money we make?
But why wouldn't they want, like, let's just say SMU in general? I know they voted specifically on Stanford, and it's, powerful.
Stanford and Cal. How do you not vote for Stanford? Except for geography. Here's one of the great academic institutions that does everything right, or so it seems, and they win the Sears Cup. So they're competitive in every sport.
Well, let's just say, too, in football, they've been down for the last couple of years, I would say, and certainly Cal has been down, and SMU doesn't necessarily compare. If you're Florida State and Clemson voting, I'm saying in particular, you want as advantageous of a schedule as possible to give you the best chance year in and year out to go undefeated, let's say. And those schedules would be not having, if you're Florida State, not having Clemson on the schedule, or if you're Clemson, not having Florida State on the schedule. And the only way that's possible is to get as many teams in here as we possibly can, where I can have a schedule that's easy as all get out, where I'm going automatically to the playoffs at the end of the year. The only tough game I've got really is that conference championship game. It seems like a no-brainer to allow as many teams like this in as possible.
Well, you don't when your television package is less money than the two that are really carrying the ball, the SEC and the Big Ten. Big Ten makes more money than the SEC at this point. So wait a second. They're not making that same amount of money. And if you add these partners, now look, SMU being the exception here, but if you add these partners, then you're splitting already a lesser revenue stream with more partners. That's why they're not for it.
Well, that's true. That's a good point, too, as well. But all of this kind of comes down to your opportunity in the future, too, doesn't it, at this point? Like we're saying, all this is so theoretical. A way to ensure yourself some money down the stretch is to be as prominent as possible, and I think more teams
if
make
Memphis
that happen.
got that deal with no revenue for 7 years, I'm assuming they would try like the Dickens to figure out a way to financially do it. Because, as you said, 7 years from now, you're secured. But can you survive 7 years? That's a question. You'd have to be creative. I suspect, look, I know there are some really, really smart, good business people on the Board of Trustees, and you've got your own Board of Trustees, so maybe that helps you in making some sort of financial arrangements. I still think if indeed Florida and State and Clemson end up leaving, Memphis is probably a candidate to join. They make more sense in my mind geographically than SMU. But SMU is the one they're talking to. It's 15, too. That makes no sense. Why would you go with 15 and not add a 16th?
Doesn't even really make sense to go that far west just in terms of geography, but it looks like geography's kind of being thrown out the window at this point.
Big Ten's done that. When you're talking about, how about Oregon's going to go take a road trip to Penn State or to Rutgers?
I guess Big 12 started all of it with West Virginia, didn't they? They got this ball rolling,
Yeah.
and everything's broken loose now.
It is kind of crazy. Major League Baseball, some news, sad news. Shohei Ohtani done pitching for the year, a tear in his right elbow. I'm glad at least they identified that because they said before arm fatigue, and I'm going, arm fatigue? This is a new thing, right? Rest the arm for a couple. Well, he did. He missed a start, came back, couldn't last but 2 innings. They said he left again with arm fatigue, and then finally they said tear in the elbow. I don't know how this affects long term. You know, with all the technology and Tommy John surgery now and everything else, I'm sure Shohei is going to come back as strong as ever. But he's just a hitter. Not, you know that he, even with the elbow tear, he came back. This was in the first game of doubleheader, which the Angels lost both games to the Reds. But by the way, the top of the Central, which used to be the worst division in the National League, probably still is. Only the Cubs had a positive run differential. Anyway, everybody's winning there. Everybody. Good. Brewers have won 5 in a row. I think the Reds have won 5 in a row. Cubs won last night. So now the Reds and the Cubs have both got the last position in the wild card. National League Central is interesting. That is for sure. But Shohei, I hope, plays the rest of the year as a DH, figures out, gets to recuperate, and they fix that little tear in the elbow, and then he can come back and be a two-way guy for whatever team he plays with. Do you think, J-Mo, if you're a team in the bigs that was thinking about Shohei, does this scare you?
No, because I think the most attractive quality of his is the fact that he's the best hitter in the American League. I mean, that's the most attractive quality if I'm someone looking to sign him. And this doesn't seem to affect that at all. Bryce Harper also tore his UCL earlier this year. He's not playing outfield anymore. He plays a little first base, but mostly just DHs. I would imagine Shohei is just only going to DH the rest of the way
and
now.
And the fact that we can DH everywhere.
That's right.
It helps you a lot. Last thing on baseball, did you see Nashville now being used as leverage for the Chicago White Sox to get a better deal on their ballpark? I keep thinking, it's such a new ballpark. Like they've been in there almost 30 years since the old Comiskey got torn down. 30. Can you look that up? Because I saw that in the story, and I'm thinking to myself, I really am bad with time. As I gotten older, I'm really bad with it. Like, I can't remember, how long somebody's passed away or how long I might be doing these games, that kind of crazy thing. COVID really threw me for a loop. I've never gotten it, knock on wood, but just for time frame, because it just skews everything, pre-COVID, post-COVID. I don't know. It's confused me. But if what is it called? Guaranteed Rate Stadium now?
Guaranteed Rate Field now.
Which was the new Comiskey after the old Comiskey, and then it's had 2 or 3 different title sponsors. But I want to say they've said they've been in there 29 years.
Yeah, 1991.
Wow, that is unbelievable.
That really is unbelievable.
29 years in that ballpark. And they had to change, they had to change the top of the stadium and the upper deck. And I was there when it first opened up. And you did, if you had any kind of fear of height, you couldn't sit up there. It was that steep. They actually had to come back after the first year and redo it and make it more shallow because people, what is it what's fear of heights?
I'll look it up.
Yeah. It's not acrophobia.
No, that's spiders, right?
Yeah.
Acrophobia. Arachnophobia is spiders. Acrophobia
Oh, so I
is
was
fear of
right.
heights.
It was
That's right.
acrophobia. Fear of heights. So they changed it. That's a long time ago, though. That is really nuts. We're sitting in the Family Leisure Studio. A reminder, please. Go help them out. Clear out the inventory so all the new fall stuff can come in. Here's the enticement. Do-it-yourself pools, $1,000 off. Special 24-foot round pools, less than $2,000. What a savings if you put it up yourself. Play gym starting at $18.99. That's reduced. Patio furniture, state of the art. Up to 30% off and 24 months same as cash financing available during the summer clearance sale at I-40 and Wooden Road. Temperatures are on the rise. I do caution you, hydrate, especially if you've got to go outside for any reason. Today, I think it's at 2 o'clock, J-Mo. We get to 98 degrees, but with the high humidity, they say it will feel like 117. As much as you know how I like to play golf, love to play golf. Miramichi, Galloway, any of these golf courses, right? I'm not playing. 117? Are you out of your mind? So, make sure your home's ready. Beat the heat by getting that $69 air conditioning tune-up. It's not too late. You do it with Conway. 384-3511. An annual AC tune-up saves you money, helps prevent those costly breakdowns, and you don't want that during this heat wave. And then it makes your system last longer. Visit conwayservices.com for details, terms, and conditions. Again, that number, this is one you want in your head in case something goes wrong, 384-3511. That's the number for Conway. Back in a minute, our friend Russell Copeland on football, a myriad of football topics coming from our former Tiger and former Buffalo Bill. He's next.
Be sure to follow us at Sports56 WHBQ on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to watch live video of our shows, stay up to date with station events, and have chances to win prizes. Don't miss out on anything that's going on. Follow us at Sports56 WHBQ.
I have got an idea for a movie tie-in for Central Barbecue.
I don't like where this is going.
The Central Barbecue Oppenheimer Special. It's an explosion of flavor.
No.
So Central Barbecue's ribs are the bomb?
No. Plus, Central Barbecue doesn't need that kind of promotion. Central Barbecue's food is the promotion.
Central Barbecue's hot sauce is
I'm telling you, Central Barbecue has always sold itself because you can't get better barbecue anywhere.
So it's the Oppenheimer thing. All right, well, how about you can't spell barbecue without Barbie?
But you can.
From brilliant to beautiful, we've heard lots of words used to describe the Sissy's Log Cabin experience, but we think one sums it up best: extraordinary. Here, you'll find an unparalleled selection, impeccable service, and an experience that makes you feel like family. Shop online at sissyslogcabin.com or stop by one of our 6 locations. Find your trusted jeweler for a lifetime only at Sissy's Log Cabin, because life's too short for ordinary jewelry.
Say there was a place, the perfect place for everything you need for tailgates and patios. Grills and chairs, charcoal and coolers. Everything to make a great game or a great day. That perfect place wouldn't be a warehouse. It's East Memphis Ace Hardware. Locally owned and operated at Quince and White Station, East Memphis Ace Hardware is where you'll find Benjamin Moore paints, local plants from local growers, and Black & Decker tools. Around the block, what you need in stock with people who know their tailgates. Welcome to East Memphis Ace Hardware, the home convenience store.
I know the sweetest thing in Memphis, and I know it's been around for 120 years. You know, I'm talking about Dinstall's, and it's time to stock up heavy on Cashew Crunch, Heavenly Crunch, Turtlettes, all of your favorite Dinstall's treats to watch the playoff games and to watch all the basketball. It's so easy to get. The sweetest thing in Memphis, all you have to do is head to Laurelwood or head to Germantown and Poplar right across from the hospital, or go where they make the candies. That's on Pleasant View. There's nothing that says Memphis better than Cashew Crunch with that little tinge of coconut, or the Turtlettes. Let's face it, there's nothing better than Dinstall's chocolate. That's the mainstay of all candies, isn't it? Milk chocolate, although their dark chocolate is pretty darn good. And if you get the peppermint with the dark chocolate and put it in the freezer, you're going to love it. So many ways to love Dinstall's. 115 years of making Memphis oh so sweet.
Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
Our title sponsor, it's Homer Skelton Hyundai in Olive Branch. You know, Chris True, all the game been together about 20 years. I promise you they will take care of you. If you just drive down Highway 70 at Lamar, first exit Mississippi's Craft Road, turn left, you'll see the crew that takes care of you. That's why customer retention is so good. They got a bunch of product on the lot. They have brand new Hyundais, brand new Genesis cars. If you get the G70, you can get a rebate of $1,000 just by financing with Genesis. Pre-owned cars, prices coming down on those, very reasonable, and you know you're taken care of. All you got to do is head to the good folks at Homer Skelton Hyundai. We traveled down south, across the border, into Olive Branch. I think that's where Russell Copeland is standing by, chomping at the bit. We're here, last exhibition football week in the National Football League. Good morning.
Good morning, Dave. You know, going into this last week, you know, really what I'm looking at is just, or pretty much from a team standpoint, is trying to trim down to 53. And teams are trying to see if they need an extra offensive lineman. Do you carry 2 quarterbacks? You carry 3 extra defensive linemen. But they want to get some players that are actually going to help them on special teams as well, especially when you carry an extra wide receiver or extra defensive back. So that's pretty much what you're going to see tonight. You're not going to see the starters play a whole lot. And what's different from previous years is that you have one trim date. You don't have to trim every week, every 2 weeks. Yes, you will have some transactions as far as players being released, but you only have one big cut down day, and it's going to be after this week.
So you have a different dynamic. You still got to get down to 53, right? But
absolutely.
But you got one less game. One less game, different way of pairing those that didn't make it. How do you like this, and how much pressure is on a guy who's like right on that bubble?
I think from a standpoint, you get a chance to see players play more, even though you have less games, but you don't have the deadline to be able to trim down from, say, 100 players to 70 players and then have to trim down to 53. I think I love it for the players because you're playing less preseason games because you're playing more regular season games. But I don't look at it as pressure. I think once camp starts, every player understands that every time that you get an opportunity to play on the field, you have to be able to make plays. You have 3 exhibition games to be able to make those plays. You also have the practice, the inter-squad, the scrimmages that you have with other teams during that week. So you have plenty of times to be able to show a coaching staff what you can do and what you can bring to that football team.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring it up, and I had it in my notes. We didn't used to have, that I can remember, you tell me because you were at a number of training camps. We used to have exhibition games, but we didn't have midweek scrimmages against the team that you were going to play in the exhibition game. It seems to me more work is getting done in those scrimmages. The starters are playing more in the scrimmages than they are in the games themselves, which people are paying tickets for.
I think we when I was playing in the early to mid 90s, going into the 2000s, you started seeing more teams do that. I know when I was with Buffalo, we would play against the Steelers, and we would also practice against the Eagles. So you saw some of that, but you didn't see a whole lot. Right now, it is a major part of what you see from a practice schedule. And just as you alluded to, Dave, the starters are playing against the ones. You'll practice against the ones. You'll see the ones against the twos. So starters are getting really good work in these type of scrimmages.
Yeah. Is there any kind of major surprise that you have seen thus far? One surprise for me, because last week we kind of wrote him off, and I'm so happy for him, is that Anthony Miller, the former Tiger and former Chicago Bear, great in college, has had one somewhat productive year in the NFL, but he signed on with San Francisco, and I'm really happy for him and his family.
Well, I'm always going to be behind Anthony Miller, and as far as writing them off, it wasn't as far as writing them off. It's always difficult to be able to land with a team when you get toward the end of training camp, and it's really good for him. So hopefully he can be able to fit. I think he still has some production left if he can stay healthy. When just looking at that roster, you got Ayuk, you got, of course, Deebo Samuels, who plays everywhere. You got Jawan Jennings, and you got Danny Gray, the speedster from SMU. Also, you got Chris Conley. I think that he can be in competition for that third receiver spot. And what's good about Anthony Miller is that he's played in this type of offense under Matt Nagy for the Bears. So he has a familiarity with the offense. He can step right in and play. And also, he can be able to help this football team if they need someone to return punts. But that's his competition. His competition is going to be with Jennings, Gray, and also Chris Conley for him to be that fourth, fifth wide receiver.
Surprises for you, like Anthony Richardson starting right off the bat with the Indy Colts and not even starting game 2 of the exhibition season. I found that a surprise for sure. Baker Mayfield winning the job in Tampa Bay. He's the replacement for Tom Brady. What are your thoughts about the surprises, positive or negative, or both?
Well, I think one, since we're talking about the San Francisco 49ers, I think Trey Lance not named the starter. Brock Purdy is that starter, and not being able to be the second team in Sam Darnold. So now you look at the San Francisco 49ers, what do they do with a top 5 draft pick? And, do you trade him? Do you sit him? That was a surprise to me because I thought that he would really be ready to compete with Brock Purdy for that job. As far as players
while you're talking Brock Purdy, he was Mr. Irrelevant, wasn't he? The last player taken in the draft?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Have we ever had a quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, become a real star? Let's just say Purdy continues to play as he has, and the Niners are really good. Mm-hmm. Would that be one of the great stories of all time?
Absolutely. I mean, it's already a great story. If you look at how he played last year, no one thought that he would even be part of that rotation. And once he came in, he played tremendous. He played tremendously. So it's really, something that stands out for other players that are coming out of college. No matter where you're drafted at, you get in the right opportunity, you have an opportunity to play. All you need is a chance. But that's a great story, Dave. Brock Purdy in the starting job. And I think that he'll do very well. He understands the system. So.
That really is good. What's kind of a surprise that you found that is not a good one?
Well, just looking at the teams, when I look overall at the teams, and next week we will pick the division winners and we'll go on and have our Super Bowl teams that's in. But just going through the divisions for me, when I look at the AFC East, I don't think the Dolphins are going to be as good as expected. I think they take a slide back. I think the Patriots can be that surprise team in that division. And the reason why I say that is because they're going to run a 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. They're going to run the football downhill. They have a defense that's going to be really attacking. I don't know if any of the defenses that's in that division are prepared for that type of defense. I think Bill Belichick can surprise some people in the AFC East. And
so wait. Are you saying they're going to win that division over Buffalo?
I'm not going to say they're going to win it, but I think there'll be a surprise. I think the Bills still win the division, but I think the Dolphins will not be right there to take over that spot with the Dolphins. I think the Patriots will compete with the Jets for that number 2 spot. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
I still think it's the Bills division. As far as the AFC North, I think the Bengals take a step back. I think the Steelers will be a team that's going to be a surprise in that division. I think that they will definitely be competing, but I think that division will be the Ravens.
Speaking of positive surprises, maybe this goes into your equation with Pittsburgh, but do you see Calvin Austin, the former Tiger, who was hurt last year, did not get to play? This, in essence, is his rookie year. Will he be a factor?
He'll definitely be a big factor with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Had a long pass last week, 2 weeks ago. Last week he had a big punt return. He'll be in the mix as far as getting the football in his hands in space. He'll be really big in kick returns and punt returns. And you got Deontay Johnson. You also signed the veteran Allen Robinson II, George Pickens. Calvin Austin will be that type of player that comes out of the backfield. You throw some screens to him, but he'll definitely be in the mix in that rotation.
Mm-hmm. Who do you like in the AFC South then?
In the South, you just talked about Anthony Richardson. I think for many it was a surprise. Even when the draft was coming up, I thought Anthony Richardson would be a top 15 draft pick, and he was definitely top 5. I think him starting, I think he gives them what they have not had in a very long time at the quarterback position. I think they'll be a surprise. I think it's the Jaguars' division to win, but I think it's going to be a really competitive division. I think the coach will be that surprise team.
Just on Anthony Richardson for a second. So much of his rise in the draft was because of what he did athletically at the combine. Why do you think he will be so terrific based on what I think is a very average career at Florida?
Well, you look at the upside and you look at the physical intangibles. When you have a guy that's like a Cam Newton, when you look at Jalen Hurts, his athletic ability, very similar to that. Many wrote Jalen Hurts off, and you saw what he was able to do as far as throwing the football. I think that he has a strong arm. I think he will understand coverages, but what he has, you cannot teach. That upside, the speed, the arm strength, being able to elude defenders, that's why I think the coach picked him in the top 5, and I think he'll have a very productive career. I think he has all the intangibles to be able to do that. You talk about Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
You look at those type of players, Sam Darnold, those type of players that can throw. They wow you with throwing. But they're a bust. Baker Mayfield is playing for his job. This young man here can do it all, and I think that he will be able to understand coverages, and he'll be very well.
Will he be Rookie of the Year? Because he's in a position to if the Colts succeed.
If the Colts surprise, he'll definitely be right there for Rookie of the Year, yes.
All right. In the West, got to be all Chiefs, right?
Surprises. Yeah, I don't think there's any surprises in that. I think it's going to be the Chiefs. But I'm just looking to see if the Chargers can be able to put together a roster. Can they be able to put together a team the entire year? When you look at the Chargers, either they come out of the block stumbling and they make a push in the end, or it's just the opposite. Can Justin Herbert be able to put this team on his back and be able to win games? But it's going to be a 1-2 team. It's going to be the Chiefs and the Chargers. I don't think the Broncos are going to do anything in Sean Payton's first year. I'm still on the limb with Russell Wilson. I don't think he's the Russell Wilson of that we saw with Seattle, but I don't think he's as bad as we saw last year either.
NFC East, any surprises?
I think the Cowboys are not going to do as well as everyone thinks, and I think the Giants will be that surprise team. I think the Cowboys take a step back. They have a really tough schedule coming up. I don't think they're going to be competing with the Eagles as many people think. I think they take a step back, and I like the Giants to be a surprise team.
In the North, the Vikings are clearly the pick. They've been terrible in the preseason. The Bears seem to be improved. The Lions are better. The Packers don't have Aaron Rodgers. Any surprises in your mind in that little division?
I love this division. I think the Vikings take a step back, and I think your Chicago Bears will be a surprise in that division. But I really like this division because I think it's up for grabs. When you look at the Lions, I don't think they're a surprise anymore. They'll be a really good football team, and I think Love would do a lot better than many people think, replacing Aaron Rodgers. But I got your Bears. I got your Bears being that surprise team. I like what they've done in the draft.
You just made my morning. In the South, NFC South, Saints, Bucks are not going to be the team. If Baker Mayfield's your guy, I have no faith.
I think that it's the Saints' division to win, but I like the Atlanta Falcons. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the football, especially on the offensive side. Ritter looks very good. I like the running back from Texas that they picked in the top 10. I think they'll be a surprise team. I think they'll give the Saints a run. The Buccaneers, I think they're in rebuilding mode, believe it or not, at the quarterback position. I think that's where they stumble. And the Panthers are definitely in rebuilding mode. They have a really good defense, but I think on the offensive side of the football, they'll struggle a little bit.
Then in the West, we've talked about San Francisco a bunch. Seattle looks like they're pretty decent in the preseason. The Rams, 2 years ago, outstanding, and they look like they're struggling.
I don't know if you call this a surprise, but I think the Seahawks are ready to take that division. I think Geno is going to play just as good as he did last year, or maybe even better. I think the 49ers take a step back. The Cardinals, I think they got quarterback issues, and the same thing with the Rams. I don't know if the Rams can rebuild. They've lost a lot of players on both sides of the football. Give me the Seahawks competing to win that division, and the Niners taking a step back.
That is our man Russell Copeland. He'll make all his predictions next week, including maybe some Tiger stuff, because next week it's game mode for the University of Memphis with Bethune-Cookman. Thank you, Russell. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Russell Copeland on the National Football League. He's brought to you by another great Tiger, because, Russell was outstanding in a Memphis uniform. Here's a guy that really cares about the University of Memphis. So much so, in fact, that Matt Eflin and his team in their phone number for the Eflin Insurance Group will give you 901-386-4777. 4777, that spells out GUR, because they love their Tigers, and they love helping you and protecting you, and they get to know you in a collaborative way when they protect you. That's the whole key. They'll sit down with you, get to know you, get to know your family, what's important, what you've got to protect, how much money you've got in your budget, and then the perfect home, auto, or life insurance program is produced. Same thing with businesses. If you've got a small to mid-sized business, he's got a commercial insurance package that'll be great. Once again, Matt Eflin will sit down with you. He'll learn who your employees are, all about you, what your product is, forecast you out, what's your budget, and then protect you with commercial insurance. It's simple. Again, 901-386-GUR 4777, the number to be protected by the Eflin Insurance Team. Back in a minute, we'll head downtown. Jarvis Greer is standing by. He's right around the corner.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
There's an institution in East Memphis that I love talking about. It's the Spirit Shop at 4848 Poplar Avenue, right down the street from Clark Tower, and it looks like a log cabin. It's been around Memphis since 1969 with a family-owned, friendly, knowledgeable sales staff that is just a wonderful place to go. I love going in and talking wine or bourbons, and they've got such great selection. So if you've not visited the Spirit Shop in a while, it's been remodeled. You'll love what you see when you need spirits. Tell Eddie Wolo said hello.
Response to the all-new Genesis Diamonds has been incredible. Hey, it's Eric Hasseltine, and people are loving what Genesis has brought to Memphis. It's a mind-blowing selection and prices you never thought possible. What people really love about Genesis is the transparency and the education. Genesis is revealing all the long-held secrets of the diamond industry. They teach you how to buy like a dealer buys and how to understand the way diamonds are priced by the wholesalers, how slight variations in size and clarity can translate into thousands in savings. At Genesis, their non-commissioned diamond experts are there to guide you every step of the way. Their diamond education will make you a better, more informed consumer. I'm telling you, don't buy a diamond anywhere, not a natural diamond, not a lab-grown diamond, until you check out what you can get here. Discover Genesis Diamonds, the store that's forever changing how people in Memphis buy diamonds and fine jewelry. Now open in Poplar Commons at Poplar and Perkins Extended, the official jeweler of the Tennessee Titans.
Like many of us, you might think identity theft will never happen to you, but consider this. There's a new identity theft victim every 3 seconds in the United States. That's over 15 million people by the end of the year, equal to the populations of New York, LA, and Chicago combined. Even worse, identity theft victims don't even know they're victims. That's why LifeLock Identity Theft Protection alerts you to identity threats, even the ones that don't show up on a credit report, like data breaches, fraudulent bank transactions, loan and credit card applications, and crimes committed in your name. If your identity's stolen, your own dedicated LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will work to fix it. Nobody can prevent all theft, but LifeLock protects you in ways that you simply can't on your own. Save up to 25% your first year at LifeLock.com. Promo code HERD, promo code HERD to save up to 25% at LifeLock.com. Identity theft protection starts here.
A new era in public safety begins with you. Be the change you want to see. Join us for the Memphis Police Department Hiring Expo, Saturday, August 26, 2023, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at 170 North Main Street downtown. We'll be taking applications, performing basic testing, and interviewing candidates on site. Free parking will be located at Poplar Avenue and Front Street. Salary starting at $60,700. Benefits include a $15,000 sign-on bonus, up to $10,000 relocation assistance. For more information or details, visit joinmpd.com.
Now, back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
Lonely feeling deep inside. Find a corner.
They're underway, by the way, at the Atlanta Athletic Club. Jordan Spieth birdied the first hole. Substraka bogeyed. All I can say is, and I've never played that golf course, but it looks spectacular. Always does on TV. That and Riviera. Both those courses, which I would love to play. I tell you, of course, I am going to play Sunday morning. Cold R&D, right? I have to make sure everything's on the up and up. That would be Miramichi. Miramichi's so beautiful. That back nine is like a walk through the woods or a ride through the woods. If you are on a golf cart, there's a meandering stream, there's a waterfall, trees everywhere, competition. 17, 16, those two back-to-back holes are tough. Beautiful par 5 to finish that's reachable in 2. You can dictate how tough you want it. There's 5 different tee boxes. The best practice facilities of any public golf course. I promise. You'll love what you see at Miramichi. Plenty of shade, plenty of water. They'll take care of you. You make sure you call to get your tee time because they get booked up on the weekends. They really do. And even in this heat, they're booked. Get to Miramichi. You will thank me later. Apparently we got a little problem reaching our friend Jarvo.
That's right.
Well, he could be in the middle of checking out what's going on in Tiger football. I know you wanted to chat a little bit about the expansion because he's been vocal on that. And SMU willing to go without any kind of television revenue for 7 years. That's a new wrinkle. That is a tough one to beat. We'll see what happens with that. People, by the way, talking about Tiger basketball, DeAndre Williams, I know there was some sort of a report. One, there was a report that Memphis might find out last week, this week, still hasn't found out. I don't know how anybody could know, right? The NCAA doesn't give up that information. Now, there was another writer, I think a national writer, who said, I think the quote was, like, the quote came from somebody connected to the NCAA who hedged their thing by saying, looks like he's not going to get it. DeAndre Williams. I know Memphis quietly has felt confident because of precedent and the attorney, Dan Jackson, for DeAndre Williams has said in their report that he gave to Memphis that then gave to the NCAA that there are plenty of precedent cases that would give DeAndre Williams one more year of eligibility.
I think I said to Bryant Dacus yesterday that the story that you're just referencing.
Yeah, who the quote was really weird because it's like, well, we don't know for sure, but we get a feeling he's not going to be eligible.
But
and how would they know unless they're connected with the NCAA? And the NCAA, as far as I know, has never talked.
It was a ridiculous story. It came that quote in that story came right after they predicted the Tigers to go to the Final Four. They were like, "This is a dark horse team that could go to the Final Four." By the way, we don't even know what their roster looks like yet, and the player that would give them the best chance to go to the Final Four, I don't think he's coming. So the article itself was, all over the place, right?
Honestly, if you go by the metrics, and you are better at the deep analytics than I am, but who was it that did this? It might have been Parth with the Daily Memphian.
He does a real good job. I like him a lot.
Parth said that this guy that did the analytics that says right now Memphis is 32 in the country based on what they perceive through analytics their ranking would be, okay? 32. If DeAndre Williams joined, they would be number 9. That is a significant shift. That's how important DeAndre Williams is. Is this a really good team right now without him? Yes, you probably get the addition of Malcolm Dandridge too, so you'd have a two-headed big guy monster in Jordan Brown and Malcolm Dandridge, provided Dandridge is healthy, provided he's in shape, and provided he comes, because there is no commitment at this point, and maybe he's waiting on DeAndre Williams. If you get DeAndre Williams, 9 tells you you're Sweet 16 team for sure. Maybe Elite 8. You're close. That's how important DeAndre Williams might be. But here's the thing for me. I don't believe any of these reports. I don't. I don't believe they know. I don't believe they can even tell you when the report's coming. You might think it's coming and maybe somebody said something. They're pretty tight-lipped. You find out when you find out. Now, is that right? Should they at least let Memphis know and DeAndre Williams know so he can get on with his life? Yes, they should. But you know what? Not to defend them, but just logistically looking, they're figuring out football. There's always late cases. And that should take precedent because the football season begins this week.
Very much so. I don't mean to change the subject either, but I was looking for that story you were referencing with Parth that he put on his Twitter page, and I'm going through here. Did you know yesterday Quentin Grimes was in Memphis for the New York Knicks working out with Penny?
I know.
That's incredible. What a get.
That was the essence of that story, was that Penny Hardaway, even with a guy from Houston, who, by the way, beat him every time.
That's right.
And never played here. Never, as far as I know, was close to playing here. But Penny Hardaway is training him for the NBA. And you know what? If Quentin Grimes becomes successful, you would think Penny would go, hey, here's another guy. I know he didn't play for me, but I trained him, and he got in the NBA. You sign with me, you're going to get in.
So if they had any recruits on campus over the course of this weekend, they probably would have started yesterday. You would have get a chance to meet an NBA player on your first day. Again, like you said, not one that went to Memphis, but the fact that the head coach has connections with guys that he didn't even coach, I think is way more of a positive than anything else. Also, the guy that wrote that story about the Tigers could go to the national championship, but they won't have DeAndre, John Fanta for Fox Sports.
Fox Sports. He's college basketball, right? Because I've seen a guy on Colin Coward that does a heck of a job, and I don't remember his name.
He's the host of the Big East Shoot-Around, is what it says. John Fanta. Fanta, and he also does commentary on the Field of 68, which I believe is a college basketball podcast from the Action Network, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm assuming he got that word from somebody. I don't think he's making this stuff up, so please don't have that impression in your mind. But my thing is, does he really know? And by the way, the quote on it was so iffy. Like, well, maybe we don't think. It wasn't, we know for sure that he's not going to make it. It's just like expansion. I'll believe it when I see it. One last note, we did learn something from Ryan Silverfield in the last 24 hours. The left starting tackle would be a kid who started at left tackle last year in the Mississippi State game, got hurt, never really, I don't think, got healthy. He's a guy that I know. He's the perfect example of what will happen with a guy who's really good, will become all-conference or close, and then somebody from the SEC or the Big Ten or somewhere will snatch him up. But he named Macalyn Pounders as the starting left tackle. And again, he was going to start as a freshman. He did start as a freshman last year. And then Anthony Lanphier, who is a very good blocking tight end. I don't know that he caught much last year, if any. But Lanphier is going to be your starting tight end. And the one thing in the books, we've already shot the very first Ryan Silverfield TV show. There's no question he is in a good mood. He is more confident in this team than I've ever seen him before. And I think a big reason for that is depth. He's got more depth at every position than he's ever had before. He does this in an era with NIL and with portal, harder than ever before. My salute to him. You know, there was that era where we had Patrick Taylor, Henderson, Gainwell, and Pollard. With this age and the NIL money that you, if you're really good, you're going to get snatched up right away, you'll never see that again. Unless Memphis were to get into a power conference and become a power with television money that can afford people. Everything's going to change on that anyway. But my point is, this team really, really deep. If there's going to be any kind of superstar in that direction like those running backs, I guess it would be Sutton Smith. We'll have to wait and see.
What day are Two Deeps announced next week real quick before? Two Deeps announced early in the week, right?
Two Deep on Monday.
On Monday? Oh, good deal. So we're coming up.
On Monday. Heck, Bethune-Cookman is next a week from Saturday. Oh, man. Last portion of our show brought to you by Ken Garland. Ken knows it's a big decision you're making. You're putting up the bread for your dream home. Now, you might be buying land for it. If you're looking for it, Ken's got some. If you're not sure that you've got land and how you utilize it, Ken's got the knowledge, 65 years worth of building dream homes all over the Memphis area. And Ken knows, hey, it could be a remodel. That's costing money too. He's going to work closely with you every time. See what I'm talking about at kengarland.com, then have a conversation. 751-1632. 751-1632. Here's a guy who sees the little details of the big picture all at once. He'll tell you straight out if it can be done or it can't. And if it can, let him help you. Just go see what I'm talking about at kengarland.com. That's it for us. See you tomorrow. Johnny Radio's next.